If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Hey guys, guess what?
What?
It's Mind Pump time. Look, for the first 50 minutes, we just do our fun introductory conversation. After that, we get into the fitness talk. But here's what we talked about for the first 50 minutes. We mentioned the probiotic company Seed. They actually make a probiotic for women and for men. And believe it or not, the science says there is a difference. Now, we are working with this company. If you want to get a discount, here's what you do. Go to seed.com/mindpump and use the code mindpump for 20% off your first month of the daily Symbiotic. Then I talked about another new pet for me. I got another guinea pig to play with the other ones. Pretty cool. And the name, by the way, Millie Friedman. So, yeah, people know what that means.
I like that.
Then we talked about the show Billions. I don't watch that show, but Adam and Justin and Doug all love it.
Dork.
And apparently Jocko and Tim Ferriss were on there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Then we talked about Trump's tariffs. He did a tweet which caused the market to drop, but there was also some good economic news before that.
He's at it again.
Adam brought up Adidas and how they're crushing because they signed Beyonce. Who would have saw that coming? Then we talked about Tumblr and how their value is tumbling. Boom. And how
Dadtastic.
Pornhub is going to buy Tumblr or talking about it maybe.
Huh?
We'll see what happens. We talked about Facebook and censorship and liability. Adam got a speeding ticket. You crazy driver. We talked about my workout variation. You might want to hear that part if you're trying to change things up with your workout. Justin talked about how he cheated at this weekend's Little League game.
Yikes.
Damn it.
I know.
And we talked about how drinking one energy drink may actually cause heart problems. You hear that, Lane? Monster. Don't drink them. Before we get into the fitness questions, I do want to remind everybody, we are doing a live event May 10th at 6 p.m. in Encinitas, California. There's like 5 or 10 tickets left. Hurry up and go to mindpumplive.com. It's this Friday, so get your tickets now. When they're sold out, they're done. We're not going to sell anymore.
Yeah.
All right, so
don't miss out.
Here's the fitness part of this episode. The first question, what are some tricks or tips this person can use to help reduce the amount of weed that they're smoking? So we give our strategies for reducing cannabis consumption. One of those strategies was to employ full spectrum hemp extract in order to mitigate some of the side effects of reducing cannabis consumption. Now, our favorite company for full spectrum hemp is Ned. Ned makes the best that we've ever found, and they're verified by independent laboratory tests. If you go to helloned.com/mindpump, you'll get 15% off your first purchase. The next question, what are the uses for the Bison squat bar? We all give our input on that. Justin, what did the father Bison say to his son as he was going off to college?
Okay, what is it?
Bison.
Wow.
Next fitness question.
Thank you.
Is that off the cuff right there?
Yeah, dude.
Was that off the cuff, really?
Like that? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I hope I get that good.
Yeah, you will. You're going to become a father.
Those and puns.
The next question was...
Did you see all his likes that he got on that stupid thing he said on my Instagram?
No, I didn't see that.
You said the dumb poop. I did
about shitting and that.
Yeah, and he did make a camping pooping joke, and like 250 people liked it. I'm like, brainwashed all you guys.
I'm on a roll. Then we answer the question of what we think about the current USA food pyramid or food plate. I go off on a rant on what I think the government should be doing instead of what they're currently doing. And the last fitness question, we give our opinions on celebrity transformations. Are they good? Are they bad? Or are they just
so inspiring?
Stupid. Also, check this out. It's May. You know what that means? Next month, it's summertime. Do you want to look sexy with your shirt off?
Yeah.
Or do you want to look sexy with the bikini on? Justin wears a bikini sometimes, and he looks quite attractive. Well, look, you have some time to get in shape for summer. Our program that is the best short-term program for burning body fat, the highest calorie burning program that we have, is our MAPS HIIT program. HIIT stands for High Intensity Interval Training, and we program this professionally. It incorporates barbells and dumbbells. There's 3 versions of this program, from beginner, intermediate to advanced. Use this program to get ready for summer, and to make it easier, we made this program 50% off, half off. Here's what you do. Go to MAPSHIT, that's MAPSHIIT.com, and use the code HIT50, HIIT50, no space, for that discount. And if you want to check out our other MAPS programs, you can also go to the site, mapsfitnessproducts.com.
Hit it up, Sal.
T-shirt time!
And it's t-shirt time.
Oh, shit, Doug. You know it's my favorite time of the week.
Oh, yeah. We got quite a few reviews this week. We have 3 winners with iTunes. We have Fitty Wap, Logo 17, Honestly Haley. And for Facebook, we have 4 review winners. We have Danae Giorgio, Megan Parsons, Ronnie Chea, Felicia Murphy. All of you are winners. Send the name I just read to iTunes at mindpumpmedia.com. Send your shirt size, your shipping address, and include your Instagram handle, and we'll get that shirt right out to you.
Do it, guys.
Champions.
Hey, man, the Raja seed episode
Fire.
did so much better than what I would have ever anticipated.
Well, there's 2 reasons for it, I think. I knew it would do great.
I thought it was going to be too nerdy.
No,
Really?
no.
I really enjoyed that. And I knew people were going to enjoy
I did
that.
too, but
Yeah.
we're a couple nerds
Well, that's
too.
true.
I understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah. There's always that.
It was well received.
Well, he's first off, the information I think a lot of people are interested in. Because,
It's new information, too.
And yeah, people are interested in probiotic science because it's an emerging science. It's impacting every other science every other scientific field. In fact, biology, psychology. They're looking at inflammation,
crossover all over the
Oh, it's
place.
crazy. But he's also, remember, he was a like champion debater. Remember, he had scholarships for.
That's right.
So he's just a good speaker. So it's a compelling.
No, he's a great communicator.
Yeah.
You know, I had a question for you though. So after that episode went up, I have quite a few of my old clients that still listen or that listen to the show. And one of them was asking me about the difference between that, because seed actually has a male and a female probiotic.
They do.
And I actually didn't have the answer for her. Do you know what the major difference is between the two?
Yeah, so they have the leading researchers on probiotic science. In fact, one of the people that works with them was one of the people that coined the term. Probiotics.
And he was also on the board for the World Health Organization, right?
Yeah, so they're on the leading edge. And what they're finding with the current research is that there is a difference between female human and male human microbiome in a few different ways. First, the gut microbiome, they're finding there are some differences. And then, of course, the female, and he talked about this on the episode.
Yeah.
Women,
the vagina.
Yeah, vaginal microbiomes are fascinating, quite unique, and the health of that, it really helps in terms of, it reflects hormone health. It helps with because pregnancy, your ability to get pregnant, your ability to prevent certain types of infections, disorders, whatever. So there is a clear difference between men and women, and they are at the point where they can actually determine, if they get a sample, they can generally say where it came from and if it's a male or female. So it only makes sense that you would, to more individualize these probiotics, make a whole segment for women and make one for men.
So is it like actually different bacteria strains that you're getting for the female
different
one?
concentrations of different of strains.
Okay.
So yeah, very similar because we're all obviously the same species, but different in terms of percentages and who gets more of what. Right?
That makes way more sense than Shred's, blue and pink version.
For multivitamins.
Yeah.
No, but like I said, they're the leading edge because it's an emerging science. It's one of those sciences that there's new stuff coming out all the time, and so you want to be with the company that is that are the ones that are pioneering all this science, because it's kind of a new. Because to be quite honest, with probiotics, generally it's kind of like they're like, okay, we think this is good, let's give it a shot. But with seed, they're able to figure out what really works, how to really make these things effective for people.
I thought the clip that Rachel shared on the Mind Pump Media page was really cool about how people try and say that probiotics are, a gimmick or bullshit, and like by definition that can't be true. Did you listen?
No, I didn't see that. What was
you
that?
didn't even listen to that?
No.
No. He was just talking about that. The definition of a probiotic is that it has something that you intake has to fundamentally change.
Oh,
so it's like the fact that to say that it's bunk or it doesn't work is so funny but what's happening is a lot of companies are bastardizing it or taking that little bit of science and information and then running with it.
That's what always happens. Some science will come out and people are interested, and they'll, marketers will take it and spin it in two different ways so that now you have cereal with probiotics in it. I saw probiotic water. I don't understand, and they don't have the right bacteria or the right concentrations. It's not surviving where it needs to survive. So it's just a waste. It's hilarious. Anyway, so how was you guys' weekend? Did you guys watch Jessica's story?
I saw that there may be another creature in your household these days.
I didn't see what happened.
She showed the new. Yeah,
really?
Yeah,
like a second guinea pig, so it has a buddy or what?
Yeah, we have
starting a little family.
Yeah, we have. People have been sending me these articles showing that I think it's Sweden that makes it illegal to buy one guinea pig. You can't have just one.
What?
Yeah, because they're really social creatures, and apparently they get real depressed, and it's just not good for them to be alone unless you're going to play with them all the time.
Nothing's worse than an emo guinea pig.
You got closed.
Yeah. The one I had started growing her hair like in her face.
It's got like face paint.
She had an attitude. I was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "You don't know
Purple
me."
hair.
Yeah, I ran back in the house. I'm like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. No, but she started having kind of erratic
do my own thing
behavior, and I was feeling kind of bad. And then people were sending me articles making me feel worse.
The guinea pig was having erratic behavior?
Yeah, like
what does that look like?
She was like, she just didn't look happy.
It made like a different noise, like meow.
Yeah.
Just when I think you couldn't get any nerdier.
Yeah.
You could run out and get another one.
Yeah, well, we got another one. Now they're friends.
Yeah.
They're little buddies. They hide in the house together. It's a good time.
Chase after each other.
I tell you,
it's funny that there's a whole community out there of people who are like super into. I get all these messages from people.
World.
Yeah, well, there's communities of people that dress up like rabbits and fuck each other too. So
there is.
Wow.
There is.
I saw those this weekend.
Yeah,
too.
You didn't.
I did, dude.
There was another furry.
Yeah, I figured out there's like two spots. I always see them downtown Santa Cruz, and like now I know where to avoid. There's one that's like this restaurant that's right near the parking lot, and then there's other one where it's like this open, this new restaurant area that just opened, and so that's their two hangout spots. We drove by and saw them again.
Well, you remember when we were up in this was a long time ago when Mind Pump first started. We were all up in Santa Cruz together, and the one time we'd all been up there together when we were at the coffee shop and
you guys saw them while you were there too?
We were all together.
Wait a minute, is that Santa Cruz like a hub?
Yeah, like they're there, dude. I captured it on my story one time and like highlighted it. You'd see people like look at them and then their face was just like like just horrified.
So like all the time, like you'll go to these certain areas and they're just chilling.
Yeah, they hang out.
That is.
I don't know what they do later, but yeah, apparently they eat together. And they serve them like
out of a bowl.
Yeah, dishes in a bowl.
No, they don't.
Water.
Shut your face.
Yeah, that's probably two places that they do that.
Dude, I was having a conversation yesterday, and I was talking about how when I was a kid, so you figure the late 80s, early 90s, right? When I'd go out to dinner with my parents and somebody would be walking around with like purple hair or like spiky hair, like they'd have the mohawk. My dad would always shake his head like, "Oh, crazy kids, look what they're doing, this and that." Now, if somebody has colored hair, it's like, "Hey, you must be super conservative because you don't have
conservative."
Because you're not dressed like a
dressed like a furry.
You're not dressed like a fox,
dude. And it's like, come on, man. What am I supposed to tell my kids? Like and then they try and like interact with my kids. I walk by, I'm like, dude, beat it. Like I don't trust anybody with a mask on and is being all like, ooh, like interested in kids.
It's like the equivalent of saying, "Hey,
fuck off.
Yeah, do you want some candy?"
Yeah.
Now, how do they interact with your kids? Do they act like the character?
They move all weird and they like come up to him like, hey, and like all cartoony.
Dude,
I just wanted to like kick him.
I was gonna say, does your dad instant kick?
Oh yeah. My arms got up, and I was like creating space, and I'm just like, look, I was like, back off.
Of course you're gonna do that. You can't even see the person inside. No,
I don't know who that is. It's some crazy pedophile that's like wearing a suit.
Yeah, hey, come play with me.
Yeah, get out of here.
No,
that's weird.
You're gonna get beat up.
Now I know you don't, Sal. You don't watch the show. I know Doug does. And did you see last night? Well, last night is when I watched it. Released on Saturday night, right? The new Billions episode. and Jocko and Tim Ferriss both were in it.
I saw that, dude. It's
Crazy,
yeah.
right?
Now, was it just like a quick cameo?
Yeah, it's just a cameo. I think Jocko had a couple lines.
There's a few scenes though. I mean, they were like helping train these two employees from like the different capital firms or whatever, and so they were like both on the training side of it.
Is Billions a HBO?
Cinemax.
It's on
Showtime.
Showtime.
Is it Showtime?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
Cinemax.
It's like the new media space is starting to get into that whole, popular space.
It
right?
looks like
'Cause
they
those are-
want to bring in that audience.
Oh,
right?
you mean podcasting is starting
Podcasting.
to move into there?
Yeah, I don't remember what movie it was that I watched. That was a mainstream movie, and the dude, I think it was a guy, was listening to Joe Rogan and was watching his
right.
his
Well,
YouTube
I know
video.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the creators are smart. I would take a guess that a good portion of people that listen to Tim Ferriss and listen to Jocko are also the same type of people that like the show Billions, and so I think that was just a play on cross pollinating, maybe, because it was really kind of weird. The Tim Ferriss, the part Jocko, I kind of understood, like the scene cuts, and like Justin's saying, they were training for a fight. And, Axelrod gets up and like 4:00 in the morning, he wakes this guy up, and standing next to him is Jocko.
Yeah.
And it's like military training.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
he's
that
like
makes
yelling
sense.
at him and he's running
Right.
and stuff.
Yeah. So he's trying to hype him up. So there's a couple scenes. He's got a couple lines in there, and he's playing his personality, although they don't introduce him, but he's in there and he's playing that role.
Because you obviously know who he is.
Right. Yeah. But then Tim Ferriss was there. It was kind of weird. Like,
Yeah,
why,
I was like, what was he doing?
Why he would be there?
He was like
for-
training him on some weird kettlebell snatch, like and that was it.
Yeah, and I don't know what, and boxing, like I don't know what he would be doing there helping. He wasn't necessarily helping him box, but that was the whole thing they were training for.
Is
so.
he known for any of that?
No, he swims.
Well, he's done a lot. Like he's gotten
done a lot.
trained from like all kinds of different people, but I don't know.
He stayed at a Holiday Inn.
Yeah, he did. He has stayed all.
Isn't he like a
Holiday
He's
Inns.
supposed to be like a informational, motivational.
Who, Tim? You
I've
never listened to Tim Ferriss?
No, I haven't.
No, he always like tries to learn as much as possible. He tries to like hyper learn all these different skills and stuff. So he brings people on to teach them.
Really?
Yeah, like he had this like famous gymnastic coach on that taught him all this, gymnastic style fitness training, and yeah, so he's just like he's hungry to learn all these skills.
Yeah, he
talks about it.
He does a good job of exactly that. Bringing in somebody who is an expert or a professional in an arena in a field, and he learns himself and he shares that journey on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean, look at his Tools of Titans. There it is, right there. There's the clip. See, now, Doug, I was looking up this morning before I opened my mouth and talked about it that I didn't read anywhere where it said Tim Ferriss. I did read where it talked about Jocko, but you guys both confirmed that you were confident that it was Tim Ferriss also. So it'd be weird that all three of us thought that and it wasn't.
Yeah, well, it says
No,
Tim
it said
Ferriss
it.
down there.
It
Oh, you
said
found it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, good. Yeah, I was
Thankfully, I know. I mean, I've seen him before, and I know he's kind of short. So
yeah, look how little he is.
Yeah.
See, it's not a great shot of him right there, but
No.
that's him standing there.
Well, is Jocko a big dude?
No,
yeah, I guess
That's Tim Ferriss.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah,
but
I
is he
think
next
Jocko's
to
a big dude.
Okay.
Yeah, Jocko's a bigger guy. I mean, he looked bigger in the clip when they had him in. He was in a couple more clips. so-
Jocko kind of looks like Tito Ortiz a little bit. He's just kind of
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah, that
intense
was
looking.
great episode though. I mean, I'm watching that right now.
So when you saw that, were you like, oh shit, this is.
Well, I paused it and I said something to Katrina. We were watching it last night together, and I was like, "That was Tim Ferriss and Jocko right there." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I rewound it. I'm like, "That's for sure Jocko." And I'm like, "I'm pretty sure that's Tim Ferriss." And then in the morning time, I got up and looked it up, and I didn't find this article right here that Doug just found where it talks about Tim Ferriss, but I confirmed it was Jocko. But it looks like it was both of them.
Interesting. The space is growing, man.
It's
Starting to
getting
make its way.
popular.
Yeah, talking about stuff that's growing right now. Adidas had like a record quarter last month or last quarter. I think they increased by like 16% overseas. They had like 40% over profit. Like it was crazy. The numbers all from signing with Beyonce.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
So that was gross growth, or was that profit?
Yeah, I mean, I took notes on the actual numbers if you want to hear what
I don't know. Beyonce
Well,
signed with Adidas.
Yeah,
So-
'cause-
yeah, she just did. So Adidas making quarter one online sales jumped 40%. China sales grew 16%, and profits grew by 17%.
That's
when
huge for a
signing.
company like Adidas.
No, big time. No, that was crazy.
She's
So-
got a lot of-
they've always kind of had their hand in the hip hop community, though, right? With like Run DMC started out with like all Adidas, and then you had Yeezy sign that.
Well,
that
this is
contract.
this is the new model right now. In fact, I was talking to my buddy, and he's like, been paying attention to what we're doing. He's like, man, you guys got to get like a professional athlete to, rep your shit. I'm like, it's funny. We're in a different era now. Like that when we were growing up, that's how you did it. Like you get this pro athlete, but
do they not have nearly as much power as these?
they just pro athletes just don't have as much power as like these now, mind you, Beyonce's like, she's transcended all of that. She's super uber famous, but for the most part, like these influencers have just as much pull. And that's what Adidas did a really good job. I'd say, I don't know, it was right when they signed Kanye. From that moment on, they went on this tear of just getting all these different influencers instead of dumping so much money into pro athletes. Like Nike's done forever, right? That's been a staple move for them, is to swoop up all the biggest names in basketball and football and whatever. And it's not that they're not like, it's not that Adidas doesn't have like the Messier and like some of these other big name athletes, but they're more focused on these like influencers and signing them, which you would have just never
Well, it
thought.
makes sense because athletes are typically terrible at that side of their business.
Yeah.
Whereas Beyonce, you go on her Instagram, you go on her Facebook.
She's always entertaining.
Yeah,
Everybody.
and she's connecting to people and she's influencing through that. So it's crazy how it's becoming so much more important.
Well, you've
and so much
seen
more relevant.
Kevin Hart get sponsored by Nike. Then you've seen The Rock by Under Armour. So I think that these other big companies are onto it. It's just a matter of like who's
Crazy.
they're sponsoring.
Yeah. Did you guys, speaking of markets, did you guys see the Dow this morning?
From Trump's news.
Well, yeah.
With the-
so
with the tariffs in
it's
China?
actually, I'll check it right now. So we got a little live update. But the market opened and just dived. It looks like it's climbing back up a little bit, still in the negative. But we had two bits of news. So last week we had news that trip off this, the lowest unemployment numbers we've had since 1969.
Wow.
And record unemployment numbers for minorities.
Oh man, the left just hates to hear.
Oh, dude,
Just angry about
crazy, right? And it's going to be very hard to beat Trump if this kind of news keeps coming out, because if there's an economic downturn or something really crazy happens, he'll be beatable. But if it keeps this pace, I don't see them coming near him at all, because that's crazy. That's not just great numbers. That's
do you think it can keep this pace?
I think, well, no, it never does. But we have the election coming up, so it's like, can it keep that pace, and can the good news keep coming till that happens? You know what I'm saying?
Well, what do you think's going to happen right now with the market? With just happened with China, so we're going to take probably a dip.
We did take a dip. Trump is talking about slapping on new tariffs on Chinese goods, and he's very open now about the fact that this is his bargaining chip. He's like, look, this is what I can do. I can do this by myself and come to the negotiation table. Otherwise, I'll keep doing this. And here's the deal: the better our economy looks on one end with unemployment and GDP and all that stuff, the more pull he's going to have for that kind of stuff. Because every time he raises the tariffs, it costs us more money to buy products and goods. But with us getting the kind of information, good news that we just got with unemployment, it emboldens him. So imagine now, here comes this guy who considers himself the master negotiator. He wrote the book, something about the deal, the art of the deal, right? So it's like his thing, right? Yeah. So now he goes to the table with the Chinese, leadership. He sits down. He goes, "Hey, look, I've been raising your tariff. I've been charging, tariffs on your goods, and so far our unemployment went down, and this and that, and the American people support me, and I'll keep doing this unless you guys do what I tell you." That shit gives him a lot of power.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see. But the market did take a big dump today because he tweeted that he would. And it's funny, just an individual tweet from the guy, you'll see the market react, up or down, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's created that.
If you're a smart investor, like I'm on a text thread with my cousins and my brother, who are all, this is what they do for a living. And you should have seen them yesterday. They're like, "Oh fuck, Trump just tweeted this, and the futures are looking crazy because people are, it's gonna be crazy drop." If you know how to work the market, you can short the market on stuff on just off his tweet, and make money off of it.
So is it buy for them right now? I mean, is that what they're?
That's what they were doing, yeah. So as the market's taking a dump, they're buying shit that they consider to be on sale. But it dropped 400 points at the open, and as of right now, which is, what time is it right now? It's almost 11 o'clock. It's only 200, went up another 200 points. Still in the negative, but really interesting. These are crazy times, man. We'll see what happens. Here's my theory. Here's what I think is going to happen. My prediction. Not necessarily, the guy I would necessarily vote for, but I think he's going to be on. If the economy continues to do well, and I'm looking at the lineup that the Democrats have, he's going to be untouchable. No one's going to be able to touch him. He'll win again, and then because it's his second term, usually presidents in their second term, they'll do the unpopular shit that they were afraid to do in their first term because of fear of not getting reelected. So I think just like Obama did, like first term talked about Obamacare, second term forced that shit through. Probably would have lost them the second election, but he did the second time because he can't run a third time anyway.
Right.
I think what Trump will do is, if he wins, I think the next step he'll take is he'll cut government spending and eliminate a lot of this bureaucracy, which will piss off a lot of people because you're talking about a lot of people get laid off. That's what I think will happen, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, really interesting stuff. So.
Yeah. Do either one of you guys use Tumblr at all? No. It's like a blog hosting app or whatever. So it's really popular. In 2006 is when it launched, and in like 2013, Yahoo bought it. Verizon bought Yahoo. But when they bought it, they made this decision to pull all the adult content off of it. So it used to be a place where you could
just free
say anything you want, talk about whatever, and it exploded originally. And then when Verizon or Yahoo took it over, they pulled the adult content, and since then it's been
just tanking.
Yeah, tanking. But there's one company that's been showing a bunch of interest in it, and rumors are that they're going to buy it, and that's Pornhub. So I thought that was kind of fascinating that Pornhub might swoop up.
They may turn that ship around now.
Right. I think that obviously
everything they touch turns into gold, doesn't it?
It erects to the stars.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
That's hilarious. You know what's funny about all that? So Facebook just pulled several big influencers, or whatever you want to call them, off their platforms because they deem them, to have hate speech and stuff like that. So Louis Farrakhan, they booted him off, pissed off Snoop Dogg, whatever, nobody cares. They pulled off other people, and a lot of people are up in arms about it. Other people are like, they're a private business. They can do that. It's up to them. I agree, they're a private business. They can pull whoever they want. But here's the other thing. I heard this angle a while ago, and I thought this was brilliant. So the reason why the phone companies were never liable for anything that was ever said over their phone lines is because the way they positioned themselves was, all we do is provide the lines, what's said on the lines. We don't regulate, we don't look at, we don't talk about, we don't touch. So we're not liable for if somebody like makes a phone call and like organizes a crime or whatever, right?
Right.
Facebook and all these social media platforms have been so far untouchable because that was originally their model. Like, hey, we're just a platform, just like the phone company. Here's the problem. They're starting to regulate and censor and take people off their page, which now opens them up. And I heard this from
That's interesting.
I heard this from a lawyer, a prestigious lawyer, and I can't remember where I saw it. And he made the case, and I think he's right. If somebody says some shit and it causes some problems, somebody may be able to make a case to sue Facebook, and if Facebook comes back and says, "Hey, we're not responsible," we're like, "You sure are."
Right, you did this. You pulled these people off.
and you guys failed to do this. It's really crazy position they've placed themselves.
That's interesting.
Think about that.
I didn't think about that with the phone companies, right? Like we grew up with it, so you don't really think about what was it like when it evolved and it first started. Like this ability now that anybody can call anybody and talk about whatever they want to talk about. It's really not that different than social media, right?
And the phone, and that was utility, and people don't realize that was a big discussion when phone companies first came onto the scene.
Yeah, because there's nothing that stops me from calling your phone number and harassing you and saying shit and being crazy. No different than somebody coming on your Instagram page and saying shit like that. Like,
that's right.
Your option is to block them or hang up the phone, right?
That's right.
So it's pretty much the same thing.
It is.
Never thought of that.
Except now they're totally censoring, they're totally regulating. So now it's more like a magazine or a newspaper.
Yeah.
So let's say a magazine from 20 years ago, or 20 years ago, printed an article that was all kinds of crazy hate speech, and it incited a a riot or incited someone to kill someone, they probably could have been held liable, or at the very least, the case could be made.
Right.
Well, now these companies are setting that precedence that they're not like the phone company.
Right.
They're more like a publication, in which case,
Yeah, they're editing everything. So that therefore it is a publication unless you get your hands off and you let people just have discourse amongst each other. Yeah.
yeah, dude.
Then they're definitely like on the chopping block.
Dude, all it takes is one case
Yeah.
to get taken to court and to win, and then that's it.
That's
They're
going to
fucked.
change it all for
Oh,
them.
Do you
Then
think
they're
so? I mean, sometimes I think that they're making so much money, it's just like a speeding ticket. It's like, some case happens and they're like, I'm suing for $100 million. What's $100 million to Facebook?
Well, think about it this way. It's all about the precedence. So let's say somebody sues.
Speaking of speeding ticket, I got one this weekend.
Did you really?
Yeah.
How,
sucks.
how fast were you going?
Actually, we were doing more than 85. I was coming home from, we
In
went
a
up.
school zone.
No. Come on. I'm a bad guy like that. We were actually coming back from up where I grew up by Don Pedro Lake, and it's all country roads that I drove since I was a kid. And we're flying on our way. We were actually flying back to.
It was like a country sheriff pulled you over or what?
No, it was highway patrol, and he was actually cool. So he pulled me over, but I was upset at first. I'm like, "Fuck, really? Come on, we're out in the country like this, and you're gonna get me on a speeding ticket." There's like 2 cars on the on the road, and we're mobbing down. Pulls me over, but he ended up giving me just a fix-it ticket for my my driver's license doesn't have our new address on it, so it was cool. Like he could have nailed me for like
They can give you a ticket for that?
yeah.
For not having the right, because you moved?
Yeah, and you haven't updated it on your driver's license.
Did you get the new ID, the real ID
Real
from
ID,
the?
yeah.
What is that yet?
Yes.
What does that look like?
It's pretty, like, I don't know when it happened.
Same thing, just has like different badge on it.
Yeah. So if in order to like fly in the country, you have to have a real ID soon,
Yeah.
Oh no,
or you'll
no.
have to use a passport.
Yeah, no. Well, I have a passport already, but I didn't get. What does it look like? Does it look like something different than like the driver's license?
Yeah, it
like?
looks a little bit
Just
different.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
They
but
have like
I don't think so.
a California bear on the top.
Hold on a
and
second.
something else.
Why are you
Yeah.
smiling so hard in your driver's license picture, bro?
I'm happy right now.
Yeah,
It's a
life's
good.
good.
It's a happy day right there.
It was a happy day.
Is that your
I've never
original
been that
picture?
happy
No,
in the DMV.
original? No.
Then why are you
God,
so happy? You're an adult. You got a driver's license. Who cares?
Yeah, but I'm excited, dude. Excited for a new picture.
Look at the smile, bro.
The one I had.
I get to drive.
The one I had before this. I don't know if I still have it in the.
Well, you guys saw my old one with my glasses.
I
and
went.
everything.
I had to
My
do it.
fat face. You remember that one?
I had to do it so I was refinancing my house, and I needed my driver's license, and it was expired, and so like I had to go down, and just so happened to be I got nailed with like the flu, and so I went down and took the picture. This is like years ago. This is over 10 years
So
ago.
you had a flu picture?
Oh yeah. So the picture before, so maybe that's why I'm so happy, because I was like, for years I had this like, just looked terrible. So I did my hair and I have my makeup and everything like that. So I'm gonna look good. If I get pulled over, I'm gonna look good.
To make it look all awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
That's
You never know.
hilarious.
We're now in the limelight and shit like that. If I post I don't want like my criminal picture if something bad happens. I want a good image to
Oh,
use.
bro. I think it would be great if they did that. Didn't we do that to each other a long time ago?
What?
Oh yeah, we staged it. Yeah.
Didn't we? No, didn't we post our driver's
Yes.
license photos?
Yes, if you look way back on the Mind Pump,
It's
IG.
already on the internet, bro.
Yeah, we did that. Just like blocked out the information. But
I
yeah.
think that was the old one. I think you
It's
got
really old.
Yeah, I think you got an old one. This is relatively new. Like it's not the old one where I
Yeah.
looked really. I had the flu. I looked terrible. And the
we
one
all looked horrible.
the
in
one
those.
before that was still, I think, my original one from when I was 16, and I had like bleached tipped hair and weighed
I
like
had a shaved head. And
weighed like
a fat
135 pounds. I remember I get pulled over trying to go to clubs like that. Like, it looks like you ate this guy. This is not you. Right? That's why I look like when I was 16. You know what I'm saying? I was
This is
like,
your son.
yeah.
Dude, so this morning I was working out in my garage and I kind of was in a hurry. And, it takes time to switch exercises with free weights, right? And I had to finish my workout in like 45 minutes, but I want to do high volume. And I revisited an old technique that, we've probably talked about it a few times on the show, but I'm like, God, I should bring this up on the podcast. So it was a high volume workout. So what I was doing between 8 to 9 sets per body part. And typically the way I do this is I'll do 3 exercises, 3 sets each, right? 9 sets. Instead, what I did was 1 exercise, 9 sets all the way through. So rather than doing a lot of variety on the exercises, it was just a shit ton of volume on single exercises.
I love to do that.
Yeah.
And I forgot about.
I like the simplicity of that.
I'll do that with squat or bench on some days where it's just like I'm just going to do like all
Just
of that.
keep going.
Well, here's every time I do that, I feel it. That workout, it feels different than when I change a lot of different exercise. And I think it's just because it hammers the angle of pull. It hammers that particular specific movements, and you just squeeze out the maximum benefits of that whatever particular exercise you're doing.
Yeah, well, I feel like I hone in on that movement a lot when I really just stay in that same, movement and like, for multiple sets in a row, you really start to feel the effects of it.
Yeah.
It's like what we talk about. Our bodies are adaptation machines.
Yeah, and I
right?
hadn't done that in a while.
Yeah, and if you always train in the 3 to at most 5, set range, and you're never doing more than about 5 sets at most, nothing better than to fucking shock the hell out of your body and do 10 sets of an exercise and watch what happens.
And what I try to do, what my aim is, I'll pick an exercise and I'll do a rep range, and the goal is to be able to maintain that exact amount of reps for all 9 or 10 sets or whatever. So it's like the first few sets are kind of easy, but man, I can tell that I typically train 3 to 4 sets per exercise, because after set number 4, I'm like, oh shit, my body's like getting weaker all of a sudden. I'm pushing through.
My go-to, when I take breaks where I've been off for a couple weeks from training, and my first day back, it was I used to always first day in the gym was 10 by 10 of squatting 135. I'd squat 135, 10 sets, 10 reps all the way through. And it doesn't sound like very much, but I tell you what.
Oh, yeah. It starts adding up.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
Did you guys get your back in? Because I remember last week you guys were talking about how neither one of you had worked out for a whole week. Did you guys get any exercise in?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I got in a couple of workouts this week, and in between my coaching sessions for all my my kids.
Oh, what's going on with that,
dude? So this weekend was busy. We had like a couple double headers, and like I was out there on third base, like doing my third base coaching, and this is where like I do most of I help the team out the most in terms of like coaching. And so the kids are like, now they can steal and they can do all these like new additions, like they can bunt, they can do like they're doing kid pitch and stuff. So it's been this evolution of like double A, they kind of introduced new variables. And so of course something happened with Ethan again, my kid, where like I was coaching third, and there was a play in a situation where he hits the ball and it sort of goes towards first base. He makes it to first base. There's an overthrow. There's 2 people on base already before he starts running, so there's 2 runners potentially ahead of him. So one of them makes it all the way. I'm rounding him to home base because there's all these overthrows. And so the first guy scores. Then the second guy's kind of running, and then he gets to third base and he starts running back because he thinks he's going to get thrown at home. Meanwhile, my son's running as fast as he can towards third, and then he's rounding third. Now they're both together, like right in front of me like this. And I'm like, oh shit. So I'm telling the other guy to run home, and then I'm telling my kid to go back, and he's not going back. He's almost lapping the other guy. So my instinct was, boom, grab him, and I clotheslined him.
No. Wait a minute.
I don't know what happened, dude.
Is that illegal?
Yes. Yes, like he should have been out, and I totally like just annihilated my kid.
Hold on, your own son?
Yes.
You reached into the game?
Yeah, because he kept running, and I'm like, no, and like I just stuck my arm out, and he's like, and like landed, and I picked him up, put him back, real quick, and like my hands went up in the air, like it's not me, because technically he would have been out, and then they would have got out of the inning, and this was a really intense, tight game with like this team, the Yankees, that were like, they have our number. So
you wanted to play so bad, you just had to.
Yeah, I was like into it.
So what happened? Did you get in trouble?
No, they let that go. But
parents didn't freak out?
Nobody freaked out. There was nobody that saw it except for like all the parents on our side, from that angle. They all saw me like totally clothesline him, and somebody took a video. I'm going to try and find it. But
Oh no.
Yeah, so
what did your son say after? Was he mad?
He's like, Dad.
Did they win?
Like, yeah, we won that game. So that was like we just barely squeaked it out by like 2 runs.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, so that one mattered. Like if they would have caught that, we probably would have either tied or lost.
So how 2 games? How many games do you play this weekend then?
So we played 4 games this weekend.
Oh shit!
Yeah, dude, it was a crazy weekend, dude. Because my youngest had some games too. So yeah, they were doing all these makeup games because of the rain. So I got one tonight too. This is crazy.
Is that considered cheating that you did that?
Yeah. You're not supposed to get involved.
Now, I remember when we first started talking about you and the training with your oldest, because the youngest is like the born athlete. Like he's most like you. And I remember when your oldest was first starting to get into baseball, you were kind of concerned if he would. How's his progression been? I mean, you guys, is he getting better? I mean,
it's been a real transformation with him in terms of like what I've seen him hitting wise and what I've seen him like mechanically. Like, There's points where I think like catching is something we really need to work on because he still has that like flinch kind of reaction. Yeah, exactly. Like I think when he gets older, like he'll be more comfortable with but that's his first reaction is to be like and like it goes right past him or it like hits his glove and he doesn't like squeeze down and. There's so many little nuances. I have to like stay on top of it though. Like he just needs all those coaching cues, like all the way through. It's crazy.
Oh, that's gonna be
but
awesome.
It does make a difference.
I want to come watch a game.
I would love that. Dude.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
So I've got two nephews, little nephews that played. Well, one of them is already out of college and he played in college, and then we have a young one that's coming up right now, and he's only 12 years old, and he doesn't quite have the athletic abilities as like the older one has. And we were just discussing this like the week before, and I'm like, really, are you sure? Like he's like, no, you can just tell by this age, you can just see if he's got it or not. Well, one of Katrina's family members' friends comes over, and he's got like a 9-year-old, right, that comes over, and this kid is throwing the ball with the kid that went to college playing baseball, and they're playing this game that I never played. I forget what he called it, but it's. The baseball heading towards your face is 2 points. In your chest or stomach is 1 point, and it's like.
So if you catch it, those are the points.
So it's like imagine Justin and I being about I would say 20 to 30 yards away from each other, and we're whipping it at each other back and forth. And every time I throw it at Justin, if he catches it right in front of his head, I get 2 points for that, for being right on, right, throwing it right on point. If he catches it off to the side, I don't get any points, and it's like the first person to 21. And he was playing with this. He got beat by this little 9-year-old kid who was just flinging the ball at him. Yeah, it was crazy to see.
There's some skilled kids like that.
Oh man, you could see, I didn't realize what a difference until I saw that kid playing. He's like 3 years younger than my other nephew, and I'm like, oh shit,
dude. I used to have a client who had a grandson who's both of the kid's parents were college D1 athletes. The father was soccer and the mom was volleyball, and this kid was 3 years old, and he used to have a plastic baseball and a plastic bat. 3 years old, he'd throw it up, boom, throw it up, boom, every time, never miss. You pitch to the kid, boom, he'd knock it every single time. As that kid grew up, he was just the challenge that they had with the kid was how to teach him to not be so cocky. Because he was always the best. He was
way
just
better than everybody.
Yeah. So when I would train this lady, she was like, I would talk to her about him, and I'm like, how'd he do? And she's like, well, she's like, he's doing good.
He's always good.
She's like, he's becoming a little shit. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, because he talks shit the whole time and about this and that. She's like, I'm trying to figure out a way to knock him off his podium so he learns how. Which is an interesting challenge if you think about it, right?
Right.
Because
if you're, you can, man.
You spend so many years of building him up and building his confidence.
Well, he was just like that since he was 2 and 3.
Just turn him into a Deion Sanders or something like that. That's like owns it.
Well, think about it. Let's say the kid grows up and he's always just crushing people.
Yeah.
At some point, he's going to hit an obstacle. If he never learns how to do
that'll be great. That'll be great and humbling.
Hopefully it doesn't happen when he's
Tiger Woods, bro.
That's just
you ever seen videos of Tiger Woods when he was
amazing.
Yeah, same thing. And probably really cocky and arrogant for most of his life. And then you get caught sleeping with a bunch of hookers.
Yes.
That's a
piece of humble pie.
That's what always happens.
Just get served.
Speaking of kids, did you guys see the study or the article that's making the rounds on energy drinks?
No.
And
so why are you gonna do this?
You're gonna scare us
No.
right now.
I bring my rock star to work one day.
I'm not gonna scare you.
Always.
Fine.
Let's hear it.
This one goes out to Lane.
So what they found was people who drank energy drinks a lot had an 85% increase in cancer. No, I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding with you, Adam. It's freaked everybody out. No. What they found with this, so this is a study that came out that found that energy drinks could trigger nasty side effects like heart problems and seizures in half of the kids that they studied. And so now these energy drinks, it's caffeine is the issue. And you guys know as well as I do, caffeine is it's a potent drug. It's one of the it's the most used and potentially abused drug in modern
Potent
society.
legal drug, right?
Well,
Doug.
the LD50 on it's not even that high. Like
Abused.
yeah, so it doesn't take a whole ton of caffeine to become toxic. In fact, and you know it's not regulated at all. Any kid could go to Starbucks and buy super strong coffee and can go back and get a second and third one and a fourth one and potentially cause problems. But that's okay. We've all learned kind of how to manage this kind of stuff. Well, energy drinks, because they're kind of advertised to kids. Like I was at Target and I saw they have a gaming energy drinks now. Have you seen these by Mountain Dew?
Yeah, no, they're
They're going after the gamers now. And you can tell by the flavors and the colors, that who they're kind of targeting.
Well, what's more, dude? Remember when you had all the different gums that were just like cigars, cigarettes, and chewing tobacco? It's like, what are we teaching these kids?
Yeah, but they didn't have nicotine though.
That's true.
Yeah,
it wasn't that's a big distinction.
Yeah, it wasn't like gum, candy cigarettes with actual nicotine.
We're still actually giving them. Yeah,
caffeine. So what I think this is starting to show, just because of the popularity of them and that so many kids are drinking them, is you're going to start to see some places are passing laws saying you can't sell energy drinks to kids.
Well, I mean, when did Starbucks come around, Doug? I mean, we were already out of high school or close to leaving high school when Starbucks even became a thing.
Nobody's going to Starbucks.
Or now, if you're in high, I could just imagine. I mean, because I know if I was
that's like a place to hang out.
Well, nobody drank coffee when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Coffee was what adults did.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But now that Starbucks is there, I think probably, I don't know, what's the percentage of high schoolers you think that are drinking coffee now?
Oh, it's at least a quarter, right? It's at least a quarter.
I would think more than that.
I don't know, but it's at least that in my estimation.
Yeah,
it's
because
a lot.
it's become a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when I go into a Starbucks now, you see all ages now in there.
And what about the energy drinks? They weren't, when we were kids, there was Jolt Cola.
Yeah,
which had like 50 milligrams.
You get that at like Chinatown.
Yeah, it was like 60 milligrams of caffeine. It was like nothing. And Red Bull wasn't even a thing.
No.
And then Red Bull came out, and so now it's becoming this big thing. So I think what's probably going to start happening is you're going to start to see some regulation and some backlash with some of these energy drinks, because some of these energy drinks are silly. They're just silly. Like there was one the other day that I saw. It was like 300 milligrams of caffeine in a drink that was flavored like, I think it was like it was like cotton candy flavor or something.
You know
like
what's going to happen?
That's that's too much for me.
We're going to see like like the Tide Pod challenge. There's going to be like some stupid challenge around like drink 30 rock stars in 30 minutes.
I'm sure it's already happened.
And you'll die.
Yeah, right. It'll be something stupid like that'll get them busted. That's interesting theory. Like I don't know what'll happen with that, if that's something that we'll see backlash.
It'll take one big national headline. Some kid or whatever, and then that'll start the legislation with politicians trying
definitely that's something to be concerned with kids.
There was a kid not that long ago who you used to be able to, and I'm pretty sure it's illegal now. You used to be able to buy powdered caffeine.
Yeah.
So like you could buy
powdered alcohol.
Yeah. Well, that's another story. But at least powdered alcohol, you have to be 21.
Can you snort it?
What?
I mean,
did people snort
nobody's
it?
stopping you.
That's a good question.
Imagine that.
You might be able to. That's a good question. Well, anyway, so what happened? This was made national. This made national headlines. Anything will burn. I think you just put it up your nose.
Yeah.
This there was powdered caffeine, and people would buy in bulk, and they'd put like a little bit in their make their own pre-workout or whatever they were going to do. Some kid bought it, and his friend dared him to eat a tablespoon of it, which turned out to be like 2,000 or 2,500 milligrams of caffeine. He died.
Oh wow!
And then they made it. I'm pretty sure you can't buy powdered caffeine anymore. Pretty sure it's illegal. So
this quaz brought to you by Organifi. For those days you fall short on getting your organic veggies or whole food nutrition, Organifi fills the gap with laboratory-tested certified organic superfoods to help give your health and performance the added edge. Try Organifi totally risk-free for 60 days by going to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com. And use the coupon code MINDPUMP for 20% off at checkout.
Our first question is from Bear Bowen. What are some tips or tricks to help reduce the amount of weed I'm smoking?
Whoa.
Cannabis. It's because of the legalization efforts, which I applaud. I think people should be able to do whatever they want with their bodies. I think there's been this message because of it that cannabis is totally harmless.
Yeah, it's like fair game now.
Yeah, like it's harmless and do as much as you want. And I think it's important to note that, and this question is highlighting it, anything can be abused, anything. And cannabis is no different than anything else that can be abused. It might not have necessarily the same acute negative effects as alcohol, but I've seen what too much cannabis can do, and I've also felt it. And what tends to happen to me is I start to feel, first off, I get the less of the benefits of the cannabis, and then I also notice I feel less motivated and overall down. It's like this my overall level of energy and enthusiasm and all that stuff, motivation, just kind of comes down a notch, and so I'm not as sharp. And so I actually recently reduced the amount of cannabis that I was using significantly, and I paid attention to how I felt while I was doing it. So the first time I did it, I said, I'm going to go off completely for about 3 weeks. But I did notice I had issues with sleep for that first week or so, and I had these really fucked up dreams, like really vivid, crazy dreams and I've read that that's a common side effect. But I went through the process. Then I started going back and started using a very low amount. And then after that, I tried to reduce it again, but I did something a little bit different. There's two things that I did. And this is kind of the strategy I do with caffeine as well, which I think caffeine is way harder to come off than cannabis. At least it was for me. What I'll recommend to people with caffeine is I'll tell them to cut their total caffeine intake by a quarter every week. And so by the fourth week or by the fifth week, they're off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you're doing a full cup of coffee, week one, you'll go down to 3/4 of a cup and then fill up the rest with decaf. By the fourth week, it's all decaf, and then you're off. And that you still don't, you can tell that you're going off or you're going down, but it's not this huge, like, boom, big difference. So with cannabis, I found that, and I've had a couple clients I've helped through this process as well, as I'll tell them to do the same thing. Take your total usage, be honest about it, reduce it by a quarter each week until you're down to none. And then one other thing that I've done that seems to have helped, and this is my anecdote, I don't have any studies to support this, this is my own anecdote, is to, as you're reducing the amount of THC that you're consuming, to increase the amount of CBD.
Yeah,
that you're consuming.
I've done that too.
Have you?
Yeah, it's weird that you mentioned that. That was like, I mean, I kind of, I'm relatively new. I'm not like, super like big user of cannabis or anything, but like over the last year or so, like I've loved to like intermittently use like 5 milligrams, and it's helped me kind of relax and also like be more creative. And but I have found that like I'll get on these like runs of like a couple months where it's like it's reoccurring. It's like 5-6 times a week, and then I start to kind of get a little bit addicted to that, to where I start to then introduce more CBD and then start scaling it out by keeping the amount of CBD high while reducing the amount of
what
THC.
are you guys using, the Ned dropper, or what are you guys using?
That's what I use.
Yep,
now, yeah.
that's it. Now in the past, what I would do is I would go to the dispensary and I would get extremely low or no, if I could find it, it's hard to find, THC cannabis, and I would just use CBD cannabis. But I like this a lot better because I'm not smoking anything, and it's a tincture, you just, or the dropper or whatever. And here's the thing with CBD. So here's why this might be a good strategy. At least this is my theory. First off, it's the intoxicating effects of cannabis that people are wanting to reduce when they're trying to reduce their cannabis usage. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't want to be high as much. That's where they're noticing the negatives,
Right.
And that's probably where they are getting some of the negatives. CBD isn't psychoactive. It's not going to get you high, and it doesn't interact directly with the two cannabinoid receptors that THC does. But what it does seem to do in the body is it seems to improve your body's ability to use its own endocannabinoids. So in my opinion, this is a smart strategy, because you go down on this phytocannabinoids or exogenous cannabinoids, meaning your body's not making them. You're reducing that. Your body's probably trying to boost up its own natural endocannabinoids, but they're not quite high yet. CBD makes your own cannabinoids and maybe even the phytocannabinoids that you're still consuming more effective in the body, so it kind of lessens the blow of going off of cannabis. So I found this personally, and for a few people that I've worked with, they've gotten the same thing, like really good results from it. Kind of mitigates some of those negative side effects.
That's interesting. I've never tried. So you had got me a long time ago, and that's just how I use my Ned. is anytime I smoke, I take a dropper of the net at the same time to try and even out the THC to CBD ratio. And that just makes me feel better, period. So, but I've never used it like as a, tapering off of marijuana, and I really think this is something that everybody has to kind of figure out for themselves individually, because, I know people that function very well on quite a bit of cannabis use. I know other people that just a little bit of it and it throws them off completely. And so I really think that everybody has to kind of find and the same thing with like caffeine, right? So I've learned over all the years of using caffeine, using cannabis, that there comes a point where it starts to affect other parts of my life, whether that be socially or it be sleeping at night or my, ability to podcast better. Like there's definitely a point that when I get there, I know that it's starting to give me diminishing returns. And that's
now,
all.
What do you notice? What are the diminishing returns from the cannabis?
So that I'm not as sharp on the podcast. So I'm also less social, less active. So I typically am less motivated to lift and work out. Or even do things around the house that I need to knock out and get done, or be productive for work. I'm a less productive person when I'm on it, which is why I'm really good about waiting till like the end of the night before when I'm winding down. And that's when I have my little, and I haven't, for me, because I've shared on the show that, I smoke rolled joints. Katrina rolls me joints. And I know that when I get to about where I smoke a half a joint, that's kind of to my, what I would say my 300 to 400 milligrams of caffeine. That's your number. That's my number, right? Yeah. When I start hitting that, and then I find that I'm having to hit that just to feel the positive effects from it, I know it's time to go back the other direction. And, that's just been through years of trial and error and allowing myself to go beyond that and seeing the negative effects, or keeping it much lower and seeing where I'm at. And so anytime I reach that threshold on both caffeine and marijuana, and I kind of been staying there for maybe a week or two, that's normally my sign that, okay, it's time to wing myself off for a few days or something. And depending on how long it's been too, if I've been really consistent days like in a row, I'll wing off for a whole week when it comes to cannabis use. And caffeine, very similar. And I agree with you, Sal. Like caffeine will give me like the headaches, and I'm really tired and fatigued. And so not having caffeine is way harder than cannabis. Cannabis, I find, as long as I keep it at that's my peak, it's not really that tough for me to pull. I can completely cut cold turkey from that point. So from just somebody who has a half of a joint at the highest in a day, I can all of a sudden just say,
it's not that hard.
Yeah, I'm not going to have any for the next week. And it's not like, oh God, I need my weed.
I think you definitely feel a physiological withdrawal, but it's mild in comparison to other substances.
Like caffeine.
But there's a lot of people that are, just like with anything, right? They get this psychological addiction where it's like, I need it just to, because
it's part of a ritual that they established.
That's probably actually the hardest part. The hardest part for me is actually, that's why it's really easy when I go like on vacation or do something that I don't need.
It's not there.
Yeah, it's not there. I have a ritual that I do. It's like, once I wind completely down and I decide to sit down and watch my Netflix series for the evening or whatever, and it's 7, 8 o'clock at night, I plop down on the couch. One of my favorite things to do is to reach over on my coffee table and, take a couple hits off the joint and then put my feet up on the couch. So I find myself more addicted to the ritual than I am actually the substance. And so, so one of the hacks, I guess, for this person is pay attention if you have similar things like that and create new habits around that time for a while while you're pulling yourself off. So instead of me sitting down and watching TV, maybe that would be a good time for me to like, oh, this week at 8 o'clock at night when I would normally sit down and watch Netflix, I'm going to discipline myself to read because I don't have a desire to smoke weed while I'm reading one of my books. So maybe find a different habit, or that you can meal prep, whatever it may be that you wouldn't naturally want to go gravitate to smoking.
Yeah, and it's funny too because you can find studies that'll show that because when you use a lot of cannabis, one of the big side effects of it is short-term memory degradation. Like people just don't, like you said, Adam, feel as sharp, not able to recall, short-term memories as quickly. This is with heavy use. And anybody who smokes weed and denies that you're full of shit. Like smoke a lot of weed, guaranteed you'll see when you test, that you're just not going to remember stuff as well. And what they find in some of these studies is that when you do it with CBD, some of that is mitigated. And they've shown this. This other major side effect of a lot of cannabis use is anxiety and paranoia. That can definitely happen in people when they go heavy use and they're using it on a daily basis. Oh, yeah. Also, when you take CBD with THC, they find it doesn't cure it, but it does mitigate a lot of the effects. When they do these big long studies, they find people who use lots of THC, the rate of anxiety and paranoia and those types of feelings goes up a significant amount. When people use a lot of THC but also use a lot of CBD with it, there's a difference. And it's just funny to me because the old school cannabis probably was relatively balanced. It probably had...
No, it absolutely was.
And we just bred it to be super stony.
We have I mean, it was like 15% THC.
That was considered strong.
Yeah, no. That's what I'm saying. Like that was like the peak was like 15% THC, where now we're pushing north of 25. Yep. I mean, you're talking about almost a double increase in THC levels, and the CBD, the ratio isn't the same, right? Mm-hmm. So the CBD has been relatively the same, even when it was in the low 12 to 13%. So the ratio of CBD to THC was relatively high or better. A better ratio, you should say. And then when we went up to like 25, it's just not the same. When you shared that with me, that was like that. That's how I use Ned majority of the time for me is I keep
it. Then you'll have your
I keep it in the same place. And you put it on your tongue for about 30 seconds to a minute. So I'm literally, first thing I do, drop the net underneath my tongue, get my stuff all ready out, put it on the coffee table, get my show ready, and then I rinse it down, and then I go right to lighten right after that. And I definitely feel better off of that.
Yeah, the main reason I see people using it is anxiolytic. That's where I keep getting messages like, oh, it helps me with anxiety. And these are people who don't use cannabis. They just got the Ned because they wanted to see if it helped them with those effects. That's the biggest thing. But the kind of sleeper is what we're talking about, because as cannabis use goes up, I think you're going to see more and more people realize like, oh shit, like I should probably balance this out with something that's going to, take away some of the negatives.
Next question is from Alejandro Sanchez Takes Photos. What are the uses for the Bison squat bar?
That's our guy.
Yeah. Wait, who is that?
That's who just shot our last
it is.
Mind Pump Live.
That's right.
Shot our Seattle mirror.
So the Bison bar is that kind of curved bar where the weights are lower than the middle of the bar that's sitting on your traps. And there's different variations. I know the Bison one is specifically the curved one, but then you have bars that are more jagged, right? They come out straight and then they drop down. And then they put weights on the side.
When you originally picked the question, I thought that's what we were talking about. I'm not even familiar with the name of that bar. I've used that bar.
I know there's a few bars out there. There's a safety bar. There's a yoke bar. There's all these like different kind of variations of that, but they all like are, the whole thing's about like where they're loading the weight, and that's what's interesting.
Now, I don't have a ton of personal experience using these bars, but just by looking at them and the little experience I do have with them, the big difference really, obviously, is the placing of the weight, which would change the it would change the lever a little bit. So what I mean by that is, so if you took a broomstick and you lifted a broomstick by the middle of it, it would be a lot lighter or easier to lift than if you grabbed the very, very end of it and tried to lift it out straight in front of you. And that's just physics. The lever gets longer. If you put weight further away from you on a long lever, it's going to feel heavier than if you move it closer to your body. And so this changes the lever a little bit in the sense that the weight is lower on the body, so your upper body isn't so long of a lever with the placement of the weights. So it feels like there's less of that back involvement and extension. It feels like there's more of your hips,
right,
or more of your legs and less of that kind of back extension.
It's interesting when
it's more centric.
It's interesting when you do it. It feels weird. So especially at the bottom of the squat, because if you've squatted a lot and you're used to just a standard bar, Olympic bar, and then you go use one of these bars at the bottom, which is why I like it. It just kind of throws you're a little unstable at the very bottom, and it's just more challenging. You would think that
does it make you sit up more?
No, it's not that it makes you. Well, yeah, it kind of makes you sit up a little bit more. You would think, based off of your theory, you're saying that it would be easier, but I don't think it's easier at all. I don't think it feels the way. I can't
it's
do
different.
Yeah, I can't do more weight on any of those bars than I can a standard Olympic bar. And based off of what you're saying, you would think that you would be able to.
I just think it would be different. I think it would be easier if that's what you always squatted with. You know what I'm saying? So I'm wondering if it's, I don't know. Like I said, I don't have a ton of experience, but just, do you feel it more in the quads when you're doing it with one of these types of bars? Because the center of gravity.
I do feel it more in the quads.
Yeah, I would feel like it would keep you more upright, right? Because the weights are lower.
Well,
so
what ends up happening is your torso is, because again, when you've trained to squat, over and over and over and over. I mean, the mechanics of it, the hinging and the braking at the knees. Your timing is a certain way, and you get good at that, right? And just like any other skill. And, it's like if you were to use your analogy, if I was hitting with a baseball bat that was the same weight, the same size always, and all of a sudden you gave me something that was a little off, like
throws things off.
Yeah, it definitely throws things off. And so that part of it I enjoy. And it's kind of a way that I would throw a curveball in my training. If today was a normal back squat day, I happen to be at the Gold's Gym that has all these variations of bars. I love to intermittently inject them into the workout.
Every time, I try one of those with a different like load where the plates are. Like I always feel my core get like very activated.
Yes.
Like,
oh, really?
Yeah,
yes.
Because it's trying to make sense out of the the new way to stabilize the weight, because it's like a different feeling.
Yeah, it's just displaced different.
Yeah, so it's very active, like especially.
You probably can get a pendulum effect, I would assume, right? Is that what you guys are talking about?
Yeah.
Where the weights start to move back and forth?
Yeah, especially on the one that and I don't know the name of it, but it's the variation that I thought originally was
where it comes out and then goes down.
Yeah, it goes way down. So
curve.
it's like the weights are by your hips when you're standing. And when you squat down, that it really feels like it's going to swing back and forth. So I would say that what Justin just said, over all the things like as far as quads, glutes, what do I feel the most in? I probably feel the most core activation because it feels so foreign and the weight's displaced differently, that's really having to fire. And that's how I like to use it, is when I'm trying to incorporate that more.
Well, what's interesting about this is it highlights how specific your adaptations are with strength training. You get this general adaptation. And what I mean by that is if you do a lot of barbell squats, your legs do get stronger. And so generally you'll probably be stronger at other leg exercises as well. But the vast majority of the strength gains that you're going to get are very specific to what you're practicing. And so a slight variation, because if to somebody who's not experienced, if they see someone squatting with a Bison bar or a straight bar, they'll look at it and be like, what's the difference? They're pretty much the same thing. It's kind of the same thing. But small changes make big changes or big differences in the way an exercise will feel. And it's all about that specific the specificity of the adaptation, which is why I like these types of tools, because especially for people who work out with free weights or work out in their garage, you might not have all these machines and stuff to apply all these different angles, but you could get different bars and they do feel very, very different on the muscles you're trying to work.
And this is how I feel like I would use them, is when I was really consistent with my lifting, and I was during competing times, I was up to the point where I was squatting 405 on a back squat with just an Olympic bar. Man, nothing was better than coming in on what would be normally a routine back squat day, and I throw one of these different bars. I mean, it would break me at 315.
Yeah.
So something that I could do before, like 405, so that just a little bit would just throw a curveball in my routine.
I look at them as kind of novelty in that the way that I look at chains and bands and accessories like that, to be able to kind of break the cycle that I've been in for so long, to where it provides a new stimulus, but it's still working and refining that same skill with a different stimulus, a different loading, a different sequence of events of the movement, just to be able to then apply that back to that balanced load.
Now, that being said, I do think there's a hierarchy of this, right? I think that you get really good at a traditional back squat and a front squat with an Olympic bar, really, really good first. And then, once you've gotten that down really, really well, then I think tools like this are great things to.
So I have a lot of experience with trap bars, which, you could do a deadlift with a trap bar, which is similar to a straight bar deadlift, but obviously very, very different. And there's two ways that I would use it. One would be with the bodybuilder mentality, which is just different variety, different muscle activation. I'm feeling it in different places. The other was a strength athlete, version where I would just do trap bar deadlifts for a couple months to see how far I could push that particular variation. I like that version more, mainly because I've been deadlifting so long. So if you're somebody who's been squatting for a long time and you've got a straight bar squat down and you've been doing it for a long time consistently, why not try using one of these variation bars and do it for like a month or two and get really, really good at it and see what happens, and go back to your straight bar and see if you have any carryover.
Yeah.
Could be fun.
Next question is from Lift Up. What do you think of the USA food pyramid? What's good about it and what's wrong about it?
Could you pull it up on the TV
Have they
screen?
changed it?
Yeah, that's why I'm
Yeah,
asking. Could you
okay.
pull up the food pyramid?
I remember the old one. It
Yeah.
was like,
I think it's
eat lots of wheat and soy.
I think it's
corn.
I think it's still garbage.
Yeah. So here's my issue with, to start with, my issue with food guidelines from
The government.
the government.
It's just a little biased.
They've been
yeah,
off.
Some of the
tiny
biggest
bit.
lobbies in this country are lobbies that control these massive food producers like wheat or soy or corn or dairy. And so there's going to be some influence in terms of, what they're telling you you should and shouldn't eat.
That's a food circle, Doug.
Yeah. And
That's what they've replaced it.
That's
They
the new
replaced
one?
the pyramid with the My Plate, I think they call it.
Yeah. So now it shows fruits, vegetables, grains, proteins, and dairy. So now they're making all the lobbies happy.
It's still
because they throw it all in the same one.
It's still crazy
They really want you to
carb
drink
heavy for
milk.
sure. With,
Yeah.
If you got grains and fruits and vegetables all
Here-
on your plate.
Here's my other problem with this, and this is my problem with most food recommendations from most sources, is they completely negate the main reason why people have issues with food. It's because of the behaviors around the food. You can tell people what they should and shouldn't eat and give them all the great information in the world, but if they don't modify behaviors and their relationships to food, good luck. Yeah, see, there's the pyramid.
Oh, there it is.
There's the good old
That
pyramid.
doesn't look any different.
Yeah. No, that's the 1992 food pyramid. Yeah, that's the one where the grains are on the bottom.
It's still not that much different though.
I think,
I guess if you were to translate that into the plate version, the plate would be a majority of the grains where it's not there. It's now vegetables. Well, I mean, it's better. Like, I mean, if we're comparing it to what the food pyramid used to be to where it is today, it's better. We're heading in the right direction.
yeah.
But I'm not going to get on board with the dairy and the grains portion.
Okay, look, this is just, again, this is my opinion, but I think this is, pay attention to this, because I think if you look at it the way I'm looking at it, it might make sense. If you look at the way the obesity epidemic, or when it really started to take off, it really coincided well with the mass production of heavily processed foods. And heavily processed foods, I've said this a million times on the podcast, most of the science and engineering that goes into it, some science goes into making these foods have a long shelf life. Okay, that's important because food waste, vegetables and fruits, for example, one of the problems they run into is, food goes bad. They have to figure out how to get it there in time, how to keep it from going bad, and they throw away a bunch. But if you make something and you process it and you put it in a box or a bag, the shelf life is a year, and so that problem is kind of solved. But really, most of the money that goes into heavily processed foods goes into making them as absolutely hedonistic as possible, making them as palatable as possible. And there's way more shit that goes into this than you realize. It's not just the taste. It's also the mouthfeel, the sound it makes when you crunch on it, the color, the bag, the way the bag looks, the way it's marketed, where it's placed on the shelf, the commercials. So they create this different kind of context. They've done studies where they'll take different colors of plates and they'll have people eat the same food, and one color makes people eat more food. There's, the environment that they buy it in. There's I remember years ago, remember when Pepsi and Coke came out with clear?
Yeah.
Remember that? It fucking tanked,
It was a
right?
disaster.
It tanked, tasted exactly the same.
Same with ketchup. They made green.
Or black or whatever.
Black, yeah.
People found
Disaster.
it less appetizing, even though it had the same flavor
We
because
like
of
it
the
to
taste.
look like blood.
Right. So most of the stuff that goes into processed foods goes into fucking with your system, making you want to eat more. And so they've done these studies. Well, they'll give people unlimited access to whole natural foods, and then they'll get single ingredient foods or very few ingredient foods. So what I mean by that is like it's meat, it's fruit, it's vegetables. Then they've given people access to unlimited amounts of processed foods, things that have long ingredient lists and that come in packages and have long shelf lives. And there's a significant difference in the amount of food people eat when it's heavily processed. And so I think that's one of the big issues here that we're not examining is, because think about it. Everybody listening right now, at some point you've tried to make your nutrition better, right? You've tried to eat healthier and you had some good general information. I think most people know that calories matter and macronutrients to an extent are important and you probably shouldn't overeat. What's the obstacle that gets in your way? Is it your lack of knowledge? Or is it it's hard. It's behaviorally, it's hard. You want to eat more. You start eating mindlessly. That's the thing that they're ignoring that nobody's talking about.
So explain what your suggestion is here with it, because you're talking about a visual, a plate. Like, what do you want labeled on there?
I think they need to address the processed food issue. I think they need to address the hedonistic value of foods and say to people, look, if you're trying to eat appropriate amounts of food, then you need to eat foods that are whole and natural and not processed, because it'll make it very, very difficult for you. Because grains, what falls under the category of grains? I could do like chips, whole grain chips or
Pop-Tarts,
cereals or that kind of stuff. And that's going to change how that grain is presented. There's a big difference between a potato and a potato chip, or a fruit or a fruit juice. Fruit juice is also more palatable than eating the fruit itself. I think that's what they need to tackle. I don't think these pyramids or these plates are going to help at all.
This is why I like the Whole30. So if you like something generic like a food pyramid or a plate like that, I thought the Whole30 did a really good job as far as keeping it simple for people, but then also addressing like the processed foods.
Absolutely. I think it makes a big difference. And then the schools, they're terrible with, I think they counted, they were supposed to have vegetables, a serving of vegetables, and they counted tomato sauce or ketchup as a vegetable. So like a slice of pizza covered the dairy, it covered the vegetable, and it covered the grain category.
That's so great.
I've heard somebody try and say that was a vegetable before, and I just shook my head.
Yeah, and then the fruit would be like a fruit cup that was... So let me ask you guys a question. Let's say we took two groups of people, and one group of people ate fruit cups, which usually have like the fruit juice in there, and they're cut up, and then you had the other group just had fruit with the peel on it and everything, and you told them eat as much as you want, don't worry about it, whatever. Which group do you think is going to eat more calories?
Right.
That's what I'm talking about, and that's what they're not addressing, and I think that's a bigger problem than the knowledge of what's good and what's not good. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I work with clients, there's a lot of shit that they don't know, but generally they know some stuff. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, I know that's not healthy, but I eat it anyway. And I know I need to be eating that. And so I don't think it's necessarily like an information problem.
No, that's a good point. I mean, we're already that far, right? Like, there's a lot of people that still like get their nutrients from fast food, so they're trying to figure that out. And it's like we're trying to get them to have these whole foods. That's a giant step for them.
Sometimes I think too, it's information overload.
Yeah. Totally.
There's so much counter information that it's like, what do you believe?
Totally.
I mean, obviously it's part of why, we grew the podcast that we did is just to help people with that. I think that there's so much information. You could read one book that counters the other one and they both sound so smart because they're all scientifically based. But it's like, so if you're a consumer, it's like, fuck, where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah. Plus look at the individual variants. So they're recommending a lower fat, higher carbohydrate diet. But I know people who are far healthier and feel much better on the reverse, a higher fat, lower carbohydrate diet. So that individual variance is huge from person to person. But what's the one big problem that people have in modern societies with their food consumption? Too much.
Yeah.
They just eat too much, and that's what they're not talking about.
We've talked about it on the show, and of course, there's always going to be an individual variance. But in my experience, it's so much easier just to tell a client, like, you can have almost anything you want, just stick with whole foods.
Yeah.
And I know that's like just a broad statement, but a majority of people won't overconsume if they do that. They really won't. It's really
tough to.
Yeah, it is tough. It's tough to eat 3,000 calories of all whole foods. It really is. So I mean, that was, it took me years before I figured that out. And that was just kind of like what I did with clients. It's like, listen, I'm open for you exchanging these out. Here's your general meal plan that I want you to follow. But if you go off of this, that's fine. Just stick with whole foods.
Yeah, just not getting calories from liquids.
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
another
drinking it like that. It's so funny. Like that was one I brought up almost with every single client I've ever had, and that was like, right away that was like a game changing thing the first month.
Yeah.
It's easier to consume calories in liquid form to the point where I was reading an article on, I think it was Brian Shaw, strongman competitor.
Yeah.
So this guy needs to consume 8,000 calories
Right.
or
So
something
he
like
has to drink.
So
it.
he's like, fuck, what do I? So you know what this guy does? He makes, and I think it's him. I hope it's that guy. If it wasn't with him, it was another strongman. He makes these chicken shakes where he blends chicken breasts and other stuff in a blender, and he brings like 8 of these shakes to work, and he's like, I can't fucking chew and eat all this food because again, it's a way to hack the system. And to be clear, humans have been processing food ever since we started, making food. Cooking it is a part of processing. Adding seasoning is a part of a way to make food more palatable. The difference is we didn't have modern science where it's almost not fair. You know what I'm saying? It's almost not fair when you have something so fast, so easy, so cheap, and they're able to combine all these different flavors and things in ways that just weren't normally possible. Good luck trying to eat the right amount when you're consuming these types of foods. You're going to have a tough battle. It's going to be very, very difficult. So, and they don't talk about any of that at all. They just say, eat your grains, your fruits, whatever. And then there's this broad type of, I think people have the information. I just think they need to be taught, like, here's what works and here's what doesn't work in terms of behaviors.
Next question is from Buzzy2K. What do you guys think about celebrity transformations? Inspiring or dangerous?
I mean, dangerous. I don't know. I don't think most celebrity transformations disclose everything that they did, and I don't even know.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't. And then I don't even know if any of them even align at all with what they really did. Like
most of it's like gastric bypass or something.
I mean, typically with a celebrity transformation, they use as a marketing tool.
Yeah,
it's no different than how they would hire somebody like me when I was competing, right? So. And I didn't know this until I got into competing, that this is how this worked. But like all the magazines and supplement companies, they hang around all the pro shows and they pick out of the, your top 10, who looks the most marketable, look great on a magazine. They find a guy like myself. They walk over and they say, hey, listen, we'd like to pay you $5,000. And we'd like to shoot an ad for our supplement or our diet or our, transformation program, whatever the fuck it may be. And they pay someone like me $5,000 to get fat, and then you just reverse the pictures.
That's just so fucked up,
right? Yeah. But it's how, and when
it's way easier to do it that way.
Well, when you think about it from a company standpoint, it's safe. Yeah. Right, like
because they got the hard picture
model.
Yeah, you don't want to take a guy like me when he's fat and out of shape and say, "Hey, we want to pay you $5,000 to get into the best shape you've ever been in your life."
That's hard.
And
you don't know what you're going to look like.
Right, right. So what they do is they go find somebody who's already, oh wow, look at that physique, look at that. Oh, they're marketable.
That's a nice after picture.
Right, we want that guy. It's a great after picture. Go take the picture. Now go eat like shit for the next.
Which is easy.
Yeah, which is very easy to not fuck up. Right, don't exercise. Go eat like shit. That. Yeah, and then they do this. So this celebrity transformation thing, no different. Yeah. So I don't think it's inspiring or dangerous as much as it is bullshit. I mean, most of the stuff that you see out there is designed to market and sell you whatever said idea is, whether it be a supplement or the greatest transformation or their new program or an app or whatever. So I mean,
here's why I don't like the celebrity transformation stuff. And by the way, they only exist because we keep buying their shit. So that's fine. They can, if people are reacting to it, it's our fault that they exist. But here's why I don't like them. It's because people compare themselves to celebrities, and celebrities have almost nothing in common with the average person. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're Beyonce or you're who's the dude that played Thor in What's his name?
Yeah, that
Justin's man crush
bastard.
Yeah, Justin's man crush. Can't believe I forgot his name.
Want to hug him.
Yeah, what's his name? Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. So it's someone like him. So he wants to get in shape because he's going to play Thor. So the movie producers or whatever, the big production company goes to him and says, hey, you're going to play Thor. We're going to pay you $10 million. You need to get in shape in 3 months. Here's your personal trainer. Here's your chef. And
here's your stack of anabolic steroids.
Yeah, maybe anabolic steroids. Yeah. And your job is that. So now imagine this. Imagine if you had no responsibilities, so you didn't have a job. You didn't have to worry about your kids. Most of these celebrities have expensive nannies that take care of the kids. You that's all you're gonna do. We're gonna give you the trainer. The trainer's gonna live with you. Half the time, these trainers live with them, follow them. Then they have nutritionists. Well, yeah, you're gonna have a fucking crazy transformation.
Awesome.
That is not you. That is not you at all. And so comparing yourself to these people is not fair to you. Comparing yourself to anybody is not fair, but especially not to a celebrity who's going to have all this insane
and
tools.
Especially something that popped up on your Instagram feed or something that got mailed to you or popped in your email. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like half that stuff is bullshit marketing tactics. That's all it is.
But imagine what do you think you could accomplish if we're like, hey, dude, hey, Justin, you got 3 months, but you don't got to do nothing but work out and we'll give you your food.
One of the things that I don't share that much, we just don't talk about it anymore that much. But when I did my fat to fit transformation and then went all the way to competing, I mean, I had set myself up in a place financially where I didn't really have to work. And my entire life revolved around competing.
This was a business strategy for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's nice when you don't have kids. I didn't really have a job other than working out and training. And all of my decisions that I made on a day-to-day, my hardest decision I had to make is if I was doing family stuff or Katrina and I were going somewhere where I'd have to bring my meals. Other than that, everything was centered around my workout, my recovery, and making my meals for the week. And so that's a part of the hack of why I made as great of a transformation as I did in the short amount of time that I did was my complete life was dedicated to that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, they have these camps that they send people to where it's like, I'm going to go here. It's for obesity. I'm going to live in this camp for the next month or two. They provide me with all my meals. I have structured workouts. The success rate, if we were to measure it by how much weight people lost when they went to those camps, it's incredible. It's incredible success. But if you measure their long-term success, it's terrible. People come home, they can't integrate what they just learned because what they just learned made sense in that crazy, weird environment that wasn't their real life. So then they go back to their real life and they gain all the weight back. It's like The Biggest Loser. Like they show up for this TV show, cameras are on them, the trainer beats the shit out of them. That's all they're doing is losing weight. Then they go back to their real life, and a big percentage of them, gain the weight back. So, I definitely don't look at these celebrities. I mean, is it possible? Yes. Under what circumstances? I think is what you need to ask yourself. And here's the second thing: anytime you compare yourself to anybody, you're not doing yourself any good. If you want to make improvements on yourself, all you need to do is be a little bit better than you were. Mm-hmm. That's it. And think about it this way: like if I take a laser beam, and laser beams are straight, right? So if I shoot a laser beam, and from my end, I just move it 1 degree to the left, and you follow that laser beam down for 50 miles, how off center is that laser beam going to be? Potentially, it could be miles, because the further down you go down that line, the more of a difference that trajectory makes. So think of it that way. If every single day you just change your direction a half a degree off of where you were yesterday, that's all you got to do, you're going to make huge changes in a year or 2 years or whatever. And it's much more of a realistic approach. And you're comparing yourself to the only person that it's fair to compare yourself to, which is yourself. Because again, you don't know all of the things that person has gone through or what they're doing and what their life looks like and how much money they spend on people making their food and what their motivations are and any of that shit. You don't know any of that stuff. So comparing yourself to those people, super not fair to yourself. And celebrities are just in their own crazy world anyway. Did you guys see what Natalie Portman said about veganism? Did you see that?
No, please.
She said that you'll love this one. She said she's a hardcore feminist, right? And she said, I connected my veganism to feminism because I realized that the milk that we get from animals comes from female animals and the eggs we get are from female chickens. And so, being vegan is also, good for women.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's connecting the dots.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really all that.
Awesome. They're in their own narcissistic, crazy, weird bubble. And so I wouldn't.
Yeah, I try not to
look
pay
at anything
attention
they do.
to celebrities and their habits and all that. It's great that they get in shape for a movie or whatever, but I'm not going to hold that into my world of working out, or it doesn't make any sense for me to kind of bring that in.
Well, and not to mention half of them don't really look like what you see either.
Yeah.
A lot of them are photoshopped.
300 was all Photoshop.
Makeuped up. It's like it and at the peak of whatever their fitness, and then you see them in real life, and they're like, oh fuck, they don't even look nothing like that.
Do they
it's
even?
weak.
And then lastly, of course, they know nothing about. Most of them don't know anything about fitness.
But they're free to like give advice about it.
Yeah.
Which is it's always great.
There's a few celebrities that really make fitness. That's always been a part of their life. What's his name? Wahlberg.
Oh yeah,
Mark Wahlberg.
He's LL Cool J.
LL Cool J.
Got
He's another guy who's always been working out.
Strong physique.
Yeah, Dwayne Johnson. He's been doing it for a while, but most of them are full of shit, so I wouldn't listen to them. Anyway, if you go to mindpumpfree.com, you can download any of our guides for free. They cost nothing. You can also find us all on social media. Instagram is our social media channel of choice. You can find Justin at Mind Pump Justin. You can find me at Mind Pump Sal. And Adam at Mind Pump Adam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.